Is this recording yet? Let me see. What are we doing here? Okay, so hey, it's Sam, and I'm doing this live stream here, and I'm talking about the three gunas in Vedic astrology. The three gunas are very important, and they're very misunderstood. And I was just talking with a student today who was asking me about how to understand the gunas in kind of a modern context. And so here's how I explained it to him. And I asked him actually what he did for a living. Because, you know, many times we can understand things in our, through our paradigm. And he's a landscaper. So he's involved with planting, flowers and stuff like that, and landscaping. So I talked about it like this. I said, well, you want to understand that the guna is the sort of quality of nature. And so we have a tamasic guna, which has to do with things that are solid, fixed, maybe hard, and where they could be stuck, but they're solid. So like our physical body is tamasic because it's a solid structure. And rajas has to just to do with energy and activity and motion. And sattva has to do with things like, harmony and peace and intelligence or joy and experiencing, bliss and, pleasure, not necessarily pleasure, but happiness and stillness and peace. So I said it's like this. When you go and show up at a client's house to plant, flowers, flower bed, you don't just take the seeds and throw them on the ground and expect they're going to grow. What's the first thing you do? He's like, well, you have to till the ground. You have to break up the surface of the ground first. You have to loosen up the soil, till the soil, even put like maybe fertilizer and other nutrients in the soil. You have to prepare it. The first thing you do is you break up the tamas, because the ground itself was already a hard surface. There's nothing wrong with a hard surface. If we don't have a hard surface, then we're not walking around on the ground. We're sinking into the, quicksand or something. So tamas isn't bad. It's the structure. But if you want to go beneath the surface, like let's say the surface of the mind, and you want to plant seeds of truth in your mind or something, we have a hard structure. We think we already know things. We have opinions. We have this calcified kind of surface that we're living on. So if we want to have something go deeper, first, usually and often, we need something to break up the pattern. So just like him, and I said, so first you have to break up the soil. Only then can you plant the seeds in the soil. So that first part, that is related to the tamas, is breaking up that surface. So tamas has to do with that ignorance that can be a veiling force. But eventually it's also, the structure through which our life unfolds. Again, in a yogic sense, though, it can be an obscuring factor where the higher truth is obscured. So he said, okay, I get that. And then I said, rajas is, I said, then what happens after you plant the seeds? Are you done? He's like, well, no. That's just when the work begins. Right. That's what rajas is. Rajas is activity. It's a lot of activity. You need to water the plant. You need to care for the plant. You need to do all this other stuff. You need to build a structure to protect it. So there's a lot of things that need to be done, a lot of activity. But it has to be the right activity. It can't just be any activity. Right? If I show up and try to take over after you break up the surface and plant the seed, then I'm probably going to do the wrong stuff. And by the way, all of the activity of breaking up the soil, putting the seed in, doing all that, that's all rajas. Rajas is just the activity. Look at it this way. Rajas is the activity. Tamas is the structure. So tamas was the structure of the earth. We needed rajas to break up the structure of the earth, put the seed in, cover the dirt back up, do all that stuff. That's all rajas. All of that is activity. And then the plant grows. That's also rajas. It becomes something. And eventually, it becomes, let's say, a beautiful flower, gives off a fragrance. We enjoy it. It's beautiful. We like it. And that would be akin to the sattva, you would say. We get the beautiful result that we're looking for, right? And so again, you can see that tamas and sattva are kind of, they're just sort of conditions. Rajas is the activity which goes between tamas and sattva. Rajas is activity that's moving either in a sattvic way or in a tamasic way. We're either going toward darkness, fear, stress, confrontation, anger, pain, which is tamasic. This is psychologically. Or maybe we're breaking it up, using the energy of, the rajasic energy to break it up, and then align it with sattva. So we're supposed to be aligning our energies with sattva, which is what we do when we meditate. Meditation, yoga, studying scripture, studying things like astrology correctly, not just endlessly snacking on videos all the time, which is very rajasic. Again, when you see people, and I joke about this, but it's true. I call it the video snacking. People that are into the video snacking addiction, it's better than video snacking on, porn or, people fighting or, kitty cats having fun or whatever. I mean, all that's fun. That's all rajasic. But at least the rajas of video snacking on astrology is better, right? So it's a better snack. It's kind of like a healthy snack, like a handful of healthy snacks. Whereas the other stuff is kind of like junk food, right? But rajas is just the energy, and sattva is the beautiful result that we're looking for. But sattva is also not an end in itself. Because like I explained, we broke up the surface of the earth so that we could plant the seeds, and then the plant grew, and then it's a beautiful flower now, and we can just enjoy it. But what if we just sit there and just want to enjoy it? And that's all we ever want to do now. We don't even want to go to work. We don't want to take care of ourselves. We don't want to eat. We don't want to do anything but enjoy the beauty of the flower. Well, this is in some ways how sattva can also be disruptive, because all three gunas are what are called three strands in the rope of Maya. The rope that has us attached to the illusion of the earth, to the illusion that we're just this mind-body structure. So this illusion that we're just a mind-body structure are what the gunas bind us to. So the gunas are the forces that bind us to this illusion of the earth. One illusion is that we're this solid structure, and that there are solid things that are real. They're ultimately real. And then in a psychological or dark way, it's also anger, which is binding. The reason anger and fear are tamasic is because they bind us further to that illusion. When you're angry and you're fearful, you're totally narcissistic and self-absorbed in your own world. And there's no flow of grace. There's no flow. You are bound. Okay? Rajas is the energy. Again, that's why I say Rajas is all energy that moves between the state of tamas and the state of sattva. Sattva and tamas are, they're not static because nothing is static, but they're more states. And Rajas is the energy. Right? And so, being bound to the illusion of form and anger and frustration and death and confrontation is tamas. Bound to the illusion of desire, happiness, activity, energy. I'm this energetic person who is seeking desire and pleasure and happiness. That's what Rajas is. It's very much about desires, fulfilling desires. Mainly personal desires first, and then we try to connect those personal desires with others. So this is what we spend most of our life doing. I want to be happy, and I want to make the people around me happy also. We hang out a lot in that Rajas space. The source of Rajas is tamas, because first it's my happiness and my pleasure, and the action and energy so I can be happy, which is the tamasic Rajas. And then we start to elevate Rajas towards Sattva, and it's the Sattvic Rajas, or the Rajasic Sattva, is I want to make others happy. I want to make you happy. So instead of just making me happy, which is tamas, I want to also make you happy, which is moving towards Sattva, and eventually everybody be happy, which is the true nature of Sattva, is where it's not about our happiness or our involvement at all. It's about something higher, sharing. This is the other thing to understand about the gunas and the planets, especially because there are planets that rule the gunas. Tamas is the planets, Mars and Saturn, are the rulers of tamas. You know, the planets rule everything. Okay? So, again, you got to get out of the idea that tamas is bad and rajas is good, is okay, and sattva is good. Okay? They're all good for what they do. Tamas is ruled by Saturn and Mars because we also need to exercise proper tamas. For example, we wanted to plant the seeds to grow the flowers, and there is a tamasic covering on it. So what did we do? Did we use the planets of Mercury and Venus to break up the tamas? Mercury wants to talk. Mercury is talking, and Venus is improving things and making people happy. Is that what's going to break up the tamas? No, we took a damn shovel and busted through. Right? Mars, Saturn, energy. So first we busted up, which is Mars. Mars is going to bust you up, but we busted up the right thing. We didn't, for example, one of the things we have to do is start pulling out weeds, right? Again, that's Mars and Saturn. Pulling out the things that don't belong. That's Mars. That's what Mars is. He's trying to destroy the things that don't belong. But what if we have no discrimination and we start pulling out flowers while we're pulling out weeds? Well, we've screwed it up. So no, in order to transform the negativity and the covering and the dark and the thick covering, let's say in your mind and consciousness, you need Mars and Saturn to do it. The other planets don't do it. They only do what they do. Now, of course, the negative and the veiling quality of Mars and Saturn are when they're used in their dysfunctional way, like anger and fear, which are Mars and Saturn. So you have to understand this evolutionary process of each planet. I mean, this is what I teach in my certification courses, to understand these things in a nuanced way. This is just guna, okay, and a couple qualities of the guna. But with Mars, we're either getting bamboozled by our fear and anger and destroying the wrong things, pulling up flowers everywhere, when we're supposed to be busting up the surface of the earth and planting seeds so we get a beautiful flower. Instead, because we're angry and we're enraged, we're just acting without discrimination, and we're pulling up flowers, pulling up everything, making a mess. And then what happens is, after whatever it is that we pull up, whatever we do with Mars, Saturn then comes in and sort of paves over it and kind of says, okay, now I'm going to seal that thing. Now that's going to be the covering. Now I'm going to make that the sort of structure, and I'm going to try to preserve that. So again, Saturn is this sort of preservation to make things solid. Mars is to blow things up. Saturn is to make things solid. They're both functions of tamas. Right? And then then Rajas is about having discrimination, to know what to break up, which is Mercury. What is the thing? Is it a flower? Is it a weed? Who knows? I don't know. Pull everything up. That's a problem of Mercury, actually, not of Mars. Mars is doing his job. He's pulling stuff up. That's all Mars knows how to do. Show me what to destroy. But we need to think about, and Mercury says, okay, destroy this thing, not that thing. That's a Rajasic thing. Rajas is about side-to-side movement, flexibility, intelligence. And Venus things, which are, how can I connect this with something that's beautiful and harmonious and create order and beauty and stability so others can enjoy it and I can enjoy it. So tamas is literally about the structure, and as I said, tamas has a lot to do on the archetype of, individuality, others, and the universe. Tamas is very much about our own stuff. We need to handle tamas ourselves. And we need to share Rajas, Mercury and Venus stuff, we share equally. And then there's Sattva, which are the higher virtues, which are, higher vision and the truth of who we really are, which is the sun, pure feeling and love for everything, which is the moon, and pure teaching and inspiration, which is Jupiter. And those are things we're meant to just give away. Give away, not keep any of that for ourselves. What we're supposed to do is keep all of the tamas to ourselves, all of the painful Mars, Saturn stuff, we're supposed to keep to ourselves. We're supposed to handle our fear and anger. Instead, we dump it on other people because it's too hard to handle it. We're supposed to share equally with the Rajas, Mars and Mercury, Venus. You say that, I say this. You think that, I think this. I give mutual respect. It's even. It's flowing evenly. Again, instead, we want to keep all of that to ourselves. So we want to dump all of the fear and anger, the Mars and Saturn stuff, because it's too hard to hold it. So we want to dump that onto others. And then we want to keep all the pleasure and happiness for ourselves and the fun. I want to have all the fun. I want all the Mercury. I want all the Venus. And I'll give you a little bit, but I want most of it. I'll give you the Mars and Saturn. I'll dump the Mars and Saturn on you. And we also often want to keep a lot of the Sattva too. We want to keep the sun. We want the power for ourselves. We want the love of the moon. And we want the inspiration of Jupiter. We want to keep that too. But we have no problem giving away all the Mars and Saturn. So we're supposed to keep the Mars and Saturn to ourselves, have the courage to face our own shortcomings and be disciplined, and transform our fear of Saturn into structure and solitude and peace. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to share equally Mars and Venus. Mercury and Venus, and we're supposed to give away Sun, Moon, and Jupiter. You can see the Sattva and the Sun, Moon, Jupiter operating very easily in what parents generally do. Because you say, well, why would I just give it all away? Why can't I have some of that? Because ultimately, these are the things that you actually don't want. These are the things that feel so good to give away. There's nothing that a teacher loves more than to give his teaching so that people benefit from it. There's nothing more that a mother loves than to see their children happy. They don't want anything from the child. Or the father. He wants to empower the children. He doesn't want to get power from the child. If he does, he's not a very good parent. And this is how we actually judge our teachers and our parents. Were they in it for themselves? Did they just want to exploit me? Because something in us knows that once we trust a teacher, we're opening ourselves up. We're like vulnerable. And if they exploit that, it's not cool, right? Obviously. Because they wanted to take some for they want a lot for themselves. Same way with the parents. So the Sattva planets are the things that we also just want to give away. And in certain situations, we're biologically programmed and wired to do just that. This is why children are so miraculous in that regard, but it's biology, right? Whatever your capacity is to give, if a child shows up, you'll give as much as you can because you love the child more than yourself. This is also why relationships really call into question the Rajasic energy. They're very Rajasic. I mean romantic relationships. Not relationships between parent and child or even teacher-student. They're a Sattvic, but romantic relationships. I get this much, you get that much. You said this, I said that. How come when I do this, how much? How come when you do it, it's that? We're trying to share and have it be equal and even in Rajas. Tamas, again, is where we need to handle that ourselves. We need to manage our own anger and frustration and not dump it on the other person and blame them. Not try to control them because of our fear or cling to them. We need to handle those things ourselves, but instead we tend to dump the Mars, Saturn stuff on people, try to control them, try to control situations, fight with them, argue with them, dump our frustrations because it's hard for us to hold. So understand this, it's very important. Every guna and every planet, the quality of the guna of the planet is extremely powerful and important, especially this matrix of what we need to keep for ourselves, what we need to give away, what we need to share equally. And notice and that metaphor of the flower was really powerful for me, you know, because it really shows that activity really well. We have to till the soil, pull out the weeds, prepare the earth, which is all that tamasic energy. All of it is rajas. All of it is activity and energy, but has to be intelligent energy. Again, we could just start doing anything, which is what we tend to do in our life. We just react through some impulse, not with a lot of intelligence. And so then we can connect it with something higher. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. I wanted to do this live to see how it worked out. So anyway, I hope this was helpful for you.